right, we're live.
All right, welcome everybody to the Criswell Budget Committee for May 3rd, 2021. I will begin by taking a roll call by name. Councillor Proccio.
Councillor Proccio is present.
Councillor Inman.
Councillor Inman is present.
Councillor Castilla.
Councillor Castilla, present.
Councillor Clark.
Councillor Clark is present.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Councillor Hutchinson is present.
And I believe Councillor Medina is still absent, and that is an unexcused absence. Mr. Strahm.
Present.
Mr. Jackson.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Present.
Ms. Corsi.
Present.
Mr. Riddle.
Present.
Mr. Kent.
Clark Kent is present.
Mr. Michelson.
Present.
All right, and Mayor Knutsen's present. Next up is to elect a budget chair and vice chair. Do we have any volunteers that want to run this meeting? If not, do we have any nominations against somebody's will?
I'd like to make a nomination this evening.
All right.
And I think that our honorous Shelley Clark would be an excellent budget committee chair.
All right, Councillor Clark is being nominated. Is there a second?
Clark Kent seconds that.
All right, we will proceed to vote. Councillor Proccio.
Councillor Proccio votes yes.
Councillor Inman.
Councillor Inman votes yes.
Councillor Castilla.
Councillor Castilla votes yes.
Councillor Clark.
Councillor Clark nervously votes yes.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Councillor Hutchinson votes yes.
Mr. Strahm.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Corsi.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Mr. Kent.
Yes.
Mr. Michelson.
Yes.
And Mayor Knutsen votes yes. All right, we got a chair for our budget committee. Now we need a vice chair. Any volunteers or nominations?
Dave Stram nominates Philip Smith.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councillor Castilla, I believe. We will proceed to vote. Councillor Proccio.
Councillor Proccio votes yes.
Councillor Inman.
Councillor Inman votes yes.
Councillor Castilla.
Councillor Castilla votes yes.
Councillor Clark.
Councillor Clark votes yes.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Councillor Hutchinson votes yes.
Mr. Strahm.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Corsi.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Mr. Kent.
Yes.
Mr. Michelson.
Yes.
And Mayor Knutsen votes yes. Thank you guys so much. I will turn it over to our budget committee chair, Councillor Clark.
Well, greetings, everyone. So I think the next item on our agenda is to approve the Budget Committee meeting minutes as presented in the meeting packet from last May. Has everyone had a chance to review those meeting minutes? I'm getting some general nods of yes. And so is there a I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, the May 4th, 2020 minutes as presented.
Excellent. Councillor Castilla has made a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
I will second.
Counselor Prachu has seconded that motion. Is there any discussion?
Excuse me, can I say something?
Yes.
I believe the motion was to approve the May 4th minutes, and there are two sets of minutes. There's a May 4th and a May 18th. So I don't know if we're just pulling the May 4th or if we're doing it as a bundle.
Can I change my motion?
So are you motioning, are you making a motion to approve the May 4th or to approve as a bundle?
To approve as a bundle.
Okay, excellent. Counselor Prochu, does your second still stand?
It does.
Excellent. All right, is there any discussion on the motion to approve both sets of minutes as presented? All right, seeing none, we'll then move through a roll call vote. We'll start with Mayor Knudsen.
Mayor Knudsen votes yes.
Mayor, Counselor Prochu.
Councilor Prachu votes yes.
Counselor Inman.
Counselor Inman votes yes.
Counselor Castilla.
Counselor Costilla votes yes.
Counselor Hutchinson.
Counselor Hutchinson votes yes.
Dave Stram.
Yes.
Robert Jackson.
Yes.
Christina Corsi.
My vote is yes.
I skipped over Philip Smith.
Yes.
Jonathan Riddle.
Yes.
Clark Kent.
Yes.
And Shaman Michelson.
Yes.
Excellent. And Counselor Clark also votes yes. So this motion is approved unanimously. We will then move into receiving a budget message. And so I will yield the floor to Finance Director Piper.
Thank you, Chair Clark, Councilor Clark. Good evening. Let's turn to page 13 in the PDF or page Roman numeral 7 in the budget document itself. And I'll go ahead and start the budget message. The budget message submitted herein is the proposed budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30, 2022. The budget continues to reflect a cautious outlook for the upcoming fiscal year. Economic uncertainty remains around the COVID-19 pandemic. Economists have been citing that this is a disruption in the economy and not something created by a financial collapse. This disruption has caused many residents and businesses to rely on reserves to carry through. Through financial policy established by the City Council, the City of Creswell has kept healthy reserve balances. The City of Creswell continues to provide essential services to our community and respond to the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on our residents and businesses. Staff have been provided tools to work remotely. The City Council has been able to hold public meetings via Teams and broadcast them live to YouTube. Grants have been distributed to local businesses, and utility assistance was granted to residents. Federal grants have provided the needed resources to get through these times. The CARES Act provided the City of Creswell Coronavirus Relief Funds, or CRF, in the amount of $142,045 in fiscal year 2020-2021. Of those funds, $67,000 went to help struggling businesses, and $28,000 went to help residents with their water and sewer utility bills. The remainder went to personal protection equipment, PPE, cleaning supplies, and technology to provide staff with the ability to work remotely. Additionally, a community development block grant will provide another $150,000 to struggling businesses. The American Rescue Plan Act, or ARP, will provide the City of Creswell approximately $1.1 million in funding over the next 2 fiscal years. The emphasis of these funds is to provide infrastructure improvements in broadband. The proposed 2021-22 budget includes a wastewater treatment facility at the Creswell Airport. During the COVID-19 pandemic, portable bathrooms are still in use, as there is a disconnect from city services with the Creswell Airport. Sanitary, water, and sewer to serve the current and future businesses at the Creswell Airport can be addressed by these grant funds. Controlling expenses continues to be important to the long-term financial health of the city. An important aspect of those expenses is personal services. Wages and benefits are designed to retain employees. Employee turnover can be costly in terms of training and gaining process efficiencies. Last year, employees foregone a cost of living adjustment, COLA, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. During the fiscal year 2020-2021, a salary study was conducted by Portland State University, and the results shown that frontline workers needed a pay increase to be comparable to other cities of similar population in our area. The recommended salaries from the study are reflected in the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. Additionally, based on the current Western Consumer Price Index, CPI, a 1.7% COLA increase is recommended for fiscal year 2021-2022. Employees will continue to receive step increases as part of their annual performance evaluation. The budget has been prepared to satisfy the legal requirements of the State of Oregon budget law, government accounting standards, and the City of Creswell financial policies. The financial plan for the city is balanced and was developed to continue existing traditional services and enhance some services provided by the City of Creswell. The proposed budget is a link between public policy, values, and available resources. The 2021-22 budget provides the reader with details about goals within the departmental funds and programs, along with some basic performance measures. A narrative overview is presented on the face page of the fund, followed by the corresponding financial resources and expenditures details on the following page. The actual financial revenues and expenditures for the fiscal years 2018-2019 and 2019-2020 are printed in the first two columns, followed by the figures adopted and amended in the 2020-2021 budget. The projected 2020-2021 column provides additional information about revenues and expenditures for the current fiscal year. The three columns to the right include the proposed, approved, and adopted budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. The 2021-22 budget is also accompanied by the City of Creswell Capital Improvement Plan, proposed projects and capital improvements for fiscal year 2021-22. We refer to it as the CIP. We are asking the Budget Committee review the CIP in conjunction with the 2021-22 budget. Personal service highlights. Citywide fiscal year 2021-2022 personal services will increase $112,063, or approximately 5% over fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. There is no scheduled increase in the cost of medical insurance benefits for fiscal year 2021-22. The city rate for Public Employee Retirement System, or PERS, is scheduled to increase 0.17% for Tier 1 and Tier 2 employees and 2.26% for OPSERP employees. This is the first year of a biannual rate, and PERS rates will not change again until fiscal year 2023-24. General fund highlights. The taxable value of all property within the City of Creswell city limits increased by $12.2 million to a total taxable value of $422.6 million. We estimate that the general fund will receive approximately $1,075,000 in current property taxes in fiscal year 2021-2022 an anticipated increase of $31,000. The general fund will make a loan to the Creswell Urban Renewal Agency to purchase a right-of-way, as outlined in the Urban Renewal Plan. Also, the general fund will make a loan to the airport to purchase hangars as they become available. This endeavor will provide future revenue streams for their respective funds. The general fund will also transfer reserves to the building department and airport funds to rebuild reserves and help with current operations. For fiscal year 2020-2021, despite an effort to spend down fund balances by nearly $1 million, projected general fund reserves will only decrease by $85,983. This is due to cost savings in personal services and materials and services for all departments. Further, an interfund loan to the airport to build hangars is postponed due to challenges in connecting to infrastructure. For fiscal year 2021-2022, general fund reserves are budgeted to be reduced by $813,244. Ending fund reserves will meet the minimum requirements established by city fiscal policy. Operating contingency will meet the minimum requirements established by the city fiscal policy. And combined ending fund balance and operating contingency will exceed $1.1 million, or 160 days of budgeted operating expenses. General fund revenues estimated for fiscal year 2021-2022 indicate a $152,827, or negative 5%. It's a decrease over fiscal year 2020-2021. This is due primarily to grant revenues. After factoring out the grants, revenues will increase $37,774, or 1.3%, compared to fiscal year 2020-2021. This year, the city anticipates a 10% increase in insurance coverage for property and liability. City County Insurance Services, CIS, states that these rate increases are due to a surge in claims in metro areas related to civil unrest. The 2021-2022 budget continues to reflect the City Council's policies decisions to reduce the fund balance reserves to provide improved economic development opportunities. Operating contingency reserves continue to meet the minimum requirements established by city fiscal policy. Administration and entrepreneur and community and EIC will be contracted to help business recover. Also, a portion of the AV system upgrade will be charged to administration to continue streaming city council meetings. Culture and Recreation, the city will contract an AmeriCorps member through the Resource Assistance of Rural Environments, or the RARE program. Tourism spending will decrease $10,326 compared to fiscal year 2020-2021 due to a decrease in the hotel tax revenues. Public safety, the American Rescue Plan Act will provide funding to help with economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. $44,620 is budgeted to continue providing PPE to city facilities and to provide grant funding to community sharing to help residents of Creswell with water and sewer utility bills. Planning and land use. The $400,000 community development block grant will continue to provide housing rehabilitation with an approximate $286,824 to be spent in fiscal year 2021-2022. Contractual services planning will increase $15,000 to include work related to the process of expanding the urban growth boundary. Contractual services planning economic development, E/D, is a carry forward to contract the Lane Council of Governments, LCOG, to update the Creswell Economic Development Plan. In Street Fund, in fiscal year 2021-22, a transfer of $200,000 is proposed to continue funding the Street Capital Improvements Reserve Fund. Ending fund balance reserves and contingency will meet the minimum requirements established by the city fiscal policy. Bicycle footpath Revenues in this fund have been transferred from the street fund to finance ongoing bicycle lane striping projects. These projects will continue this fiscal year. Building Department Fund. Building and electrical permit revenues are proposed to increase $2,850 collectively. Building activity in fiscal year 2021-22 is still slow due to the lack of affordable buildable land within the current urban growth boundary. A transfer from the general fund of $50,000 will help rebuild the operating reserves. Materials and services are proposed to increase $10,082 in fiscal year 2021-22, and this is due to an increase in the contract with the City of Cottage Grove to provide building inspection services. Ending fund balance reserves and contingency meet the minimum requirements established by city fiscal policy. Water Fund. The Water Fund contains federally and state mandated programs. It is necessary that the utility rates are structured to ensure the funds are available to pay for operating expenses, ongoing capital needs, and debt service obligations. A water rate increase of 2% is recommended for fiscal year 2022 by the Water Rate Advisory Committee. Transfers of $335,208 are being made to the Water Capital Improvement Fund in fiscal year 2021-2022 for current and future capital improvement plans. Debt service reserves meet the requirements set by lenders. Ending fund balance reserves and contingency meet the minimum requirements established by city fiscal policy. Sewer Fund. A sewer rate increase of 2% was recommended for fiscal year 2021-2022 by the Water Rate Advisory Committee. Transfers of $335,942 are being made to the Sewer Capital Improvement Fund in fiscal year 2021-22 for current and future capital improvement plans. A wastewater treatment facility will be installed at the airport to serve businesses both current and future. The funding for the project will come from American Rescue Plan Act, or ARP, grant monies of $500,000 in fiscal year 2021-2022. An interfund loan of $300,000 in fiscal year 21-22 from the Water Capital Improvement Fund will be repaid in fiscal year 2022-23 with the second disbursement of the ARP grant monies. A debt service reserve of $104,840 in fiscal year 2021-2022 ensures adequate reserves are set aside for debt service obligations for the following year. Ending debt service reserves meet the requirements set by lenders. Ending fund balance reserves and contingency meet minimum requirements established by city fiscal policy. Airport Fund. Grant awards for the design of the runway overlay project are budgeted at $352,000 in fiscal year 2021-2022. Also, an interfund loan from the general fund of $100,000 is budgeted to purchase hangars as they come up for sale. Building new hangars has been pushed back until the runway overlay project is completed in fiscal year 2022-2023. Wastewater facilities will be installed at the airport in fiscal year 2021-2022. The additional facilities will likely attract more private development at the airport. The airport fund will receive an operational transfer from the general fund while facilities are improved and hangars are purchased in hopes of improving future operating revenues. Ending fund balance reserves and contingency meet the minimum requirements established by city fiscal policy. A local improvement district. The city will transfer the remaining fund balance to the street fund. There are no new local improvement districts planned for fiscal year 2021-2022. Capital Improvement Fund, audio and video system improvements in the council chambers are scheduled to be completed in fiscal year 2021-2022. Water Capital Improvement Reserve Funds. Water capital improvements for 2021-2022 include radio meters and arsenic removal study. An interfund loan to the sewer fund is budgeted to complete a wastewater facility installation at the airport. Sewer Capital Improvement Reserve Fund. Sewer capital improvements for fiscal year 2021-2022 are budgeted in the sewer fund, where the grant monies will be received for a wastewater facility at the airport. Street capital improvement reserves. Street capital improvements for 2021-2022 include chip sealing of First Street. SDC reserve funds. The system development charges, SDCs, account for revenues and expenditures for projects associated with development of residential and commercial property growth in the community. As the economy continues to improve, revenues in these funds will increase. System development charges are held in reserve for projects in accordance with Oregon Revised Statute ORS Chapter 223 and can be expended by purpose specifically outlined in ORS 223-307. In fiscal year 2021-2022, expenditures for improvements at Grasslands Park, a master plan for Garden Lake Park, completion of an ADA pad and installation of equipment at the Cobalt Park, and improvements at South 2nd Street are budgeted in the amount of $405,000. Acknowledgements. We would like to thank the residents of Creswell for putting your trust in your local government leadership and for providing your input as community members as the City Council makes policy decisions that help improve the livability of our community. We would also like to extend special thanks to Creswell professional staff for their efforts in researching and providing financial information for preparation of the budget. Lastly, we'd like to thank the City Council and citizen members of the Budget Committee for your support and willingness to serve your community. It's an honor to work with professional and skilled city employees and community volunteers to develop and implement the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. Respectfully submitted by myself, your finance director and budget officer, and your manager Amberg. Whew. Much more complicated budget than the Urban Renewal Agency.
Yes. I say this is a good time to take a drink of water.
Right, thank you.
I think the next item on our agenda is a presentation of the overview of the proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. And Dave Stram has a question.
You're still muted, Dave.
I see that. Okay, is this the time for any questions of Jim's presentation?
I haven't yet given the presentation. This is the budget message. I think some of the presentation will cover just like the budget message that went through by fund and department. I think the presentation will do the same.
I have one question I don't think will be answered later.
Okay.
Page 9, you refer to PPE under
sure.
public safety. What does that mean?
Okay, that's equipment, protective equipment like face masks, rubber gloves, the things that we need to stay safe.
It's also known as personal protective equipment.
Thank you.
Okay.
So that is any kind of equipment that our public works or our folks now are using to meet OSHA guidelines, as well as be safe on the job.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right. Are there any other questions for Director Piper or Manager Amberg about the budget message? All right. I will now yield the floor for the presentation or the overview of the proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 budget.
Yes, Maddie Phillips, our city planner, is going to help me by displaying the presentation for me as I go through it. Thank you, Maddie. All right. Maddie, that's the second slide. Do you want to show the cover? And there we go. Thank you very much. Well, this is the more informal way of presenting the budget. The budget message is very formal, and I wanted to give everyone a chance to kind of get the high points of all the funds. We're not going to get too deep into the woods. Over the next couple weeks, I expect questions from everyone. I'll give everyone my email address if they don't already have it, and I'll develop a Q&A with everyone's questions and answers and distribute those at the next meeting. But I wanted to give you the real high points right here for you to kind of the cliff notes, if you would, for the budget document. All right, next slide, Maddie. All right, we'll start with those beginning fund balances. As you can see, almost half the beginning fund balances are in those system development charges. These are funds that we can only be spent specifically on SDC eligible projects. So we'll continue to hold on to those until those projects become ready to go. The capital projects funds, these are reserve monies that we're saving again to do these capital projects, these major infrastructure projects. And then followed by general fund at 13% of all beginning fund balances. This is kind of the catch-all. General fund is that fund that accounts for everything that's not a special revenue specific. So, and of course we've got the water and sewer funds and the street fund following, and then the other smaller funds like the bike, pedestrian path, and the building fund and the airport fund. Next slide, Maddie. So beginning fund balances, those are monies carried over from the previous fiscal years. Those are monies that were collected, but we haven't quite spent yet. Sometimes it's timing, as in the case of monies carried over for system development charges. We can't actually spend those until those projects become ready to go. So of the 15 million in beginning fund balances, we have 7.1 million in system development charges. Next slide, Manny. The general fund is budgeted to decrease by $1 million for fiscal year 2021, and that's due to one-time investments and contingency. The $225,000 loan to the Creswell Urban Renewal Agency, $100,000 loan to the airport fund, $50,000 transfer to the building fund, $150,000 transfer to the airport fund, $380,000 that we're supposed to keep in contingency reserves, $30,000 to upgrade the AV system upstairs in the city council chambers, $10,000 for resurface on the tennis court that's due, and $55,000 in economic development. That's to have RAIN, a RARE, and an entrepreneur in the city. These are all to help our small businesses locally here. Something like the contingency reserve that will come back. It'll likely roll over into ending fund balance if we don't have any emergencies that we have to tap into that. And the loans will also be paid back over time, so those will come back to the general fund. Next slide. Capital project funds. It's for city hall improvements, water, sewer, and streets. We actually have an increase in ending fund balances to $262,850, and that's after we do an $80,000 chip seal, $80,000 chip seal on First Street, $25,000 to upgrade the AV system upstairs. So you saw the portion in the general fund for the AV system at 30, and then 20 out of the capital projects fund. Months, 25,000 out of the capital projects fund, for a combined total of 55,000. That's the AV system upgrades, and there's also some switches that need replaced in the server room, not related to the AV project, but it just happens to be time to replace those as well. And then 121,000 capital outlay for the arsenic removal study that we're doing to get the wells back online, and then continuing to replace meters with radio meters so that those readers can be read with a radio signal. $300,000 interfund loan to the sewer fund. Again, that'll be repaid back in the next fiscal year when we get our second disbursement of the American Rescue Plan monies. $101,300 interfund loan repayment to the water fund. That was the Street Capital Projects Fund that was related to change orders for A Street. If you remember, council members will remember the street was opened up and there was a ton of water underneath, so they had to fill it in, and we had a significant change order on A Street. And to do that, we had to borrow money from the water fund for a year. So this is $100,000 plus $1,300 in interest coming back to the water fund. All those expenditures going out, there's a transfer in of $871,150 coming in from from water, sewer, streets, and then if we're proposing about $19,000 in interest earned in those funds. Next slide. In SDC funds, we're going to see a decrease of $169,060. That's because of we're going to have $300,000 for park improvements in 2nd Street, $25,000 to put some park improvements at Grasslands, $80,000 for Garden Lake Park master plan, and we have $174,130 in SDC assessments coming in, and $61,810 on interest earnings projected to come in. Next slide. All right, general fund program requirements. So this pie chart illustrates where the money goes for the general fund. 44% of the budget in general fund is for public safety. This is not just policing services, but it's also court, it's code enforcement, it's a lot of other activities as well that relate to public safety. 27% in planning, and 15% for administration, and 14% for culture and rec programs. All right, next slide. This chart shows the property tax revenues as they have come in year over year. Rather, this is the real market value versus taxable assessed value. We project 1.09 million in property taxes, and as you can see, although real market value fluctuates year over year, we have the steady increase of taxable assessed value. So even in the years where property values decline, we're still pretty steady on bringing those revenues in. Next slide. Franchise fees, $347,350 of our revenues in the general fund. And these are related to utilities, and as you can see, year over year, they're pretty consistent. Not very much variability. There was one year where cable came in a little bit lower, but that was 2019, 2020. But ever since, it's been very steady. Next slide. Other general fund revenues, intergovernmental revenues like liquor and cigarette tax, state shared revenues, $163,000 coming in. Other taxes, hotel, motel, and telecom. Telecom being the majority of this is $107,000. Public safety fee, $436,824. Community development block grant, CDBG for housing rehabilitation, $286,824. It's a carryover from last year. It was 400,000 initially. We're continuing to spend that down and receive the reimbursements in. CDBG business assistance, 150,000, and then the American Rescue Plan Act, 64,620 coming into the general fund. Next slide. General fund programs, you'll note personal services increased by $1,669 compared to compared to the current fiscal year. And increase is primarily due to the COLA. Materials and services, a decrease of 116,243 in fiscal year 2021-22. This decrease is kind of netted. We're going to see an increase in the Lane County Sheriff's contract. Just their annual increase for cost of living of $24,455, and then we have some new grant monies, this American Rescue Plan money, $44,620. But last year, or the current fiscal year we're in, we had a $40,000 salary study budgeted. We won't see that again next fiscal year. And then, of course, we spent the CARES Act funds of $142,000 in the current fiscal year. We won't see that next year either. The next slide. Street fund, state highway user revenues seem to be pretty consistent and steady. There was a small decrease when in the current fiscal year. It occurred during the initial impact of the COVID restrictions, but after we got through that first period of restrictions, seemed to pick right back up, and fuel tax revenues are steady ahead, and we're projecting that to be the case next fiscal year. Next slide. Street fund, personal services are going to increase $15,796 in fiscal year 2021-22, and that's primarily due to the salary study. The recommendation was increase to the frontline workers. Also, the COLA will play a little bit into that. But we have materials and services decreasing by $46,334, and that's because we completed $40,000 in the stormwater master plan, actually in this current fiscal year, but in context of the next year budget, it'll be the prior fiscal year. And then we have some savings in the street sweeping contract. Next slide. Just continued annual striping and maintenance in the bicycle footpath fund. Next slide. This graph shows the building permit activity year over year. I think you're going to see an increase. We don't quite have the 2021 numbers in, so I just have through 1920. But as you can see, residential housing has really declined since fiscal year 17-18, and that really has to do with the ability to get new land to build houses. So we're going to see sluggish building department fund activity. Once the UGB's expanded and we have new land available, I'm sure that the numbers will go right back up. I mean, there's definitely demand for housing. Next slide. So in the building department fund, total personal services and materials and services increased $5,757 in fiscal year 21-22. And that increase is related to the contractual costs with the city of Cottage Grove to provide those inspection services. And again, permit activity is expected to increase slightly over the prior year. We're seeing some of the difficult properties to develop starting to be developed. So there is some activity going on currently. Next slide. In the water fund, personal services and material services for fiscal year 2021-2022 equals $1.16 million. It's an increase of 2% over the prior year. There's no change in debt service for fiscal year 2021-22. And there will be a $196,077 decrease in ending fund balance. But of that, 172 is due to contingency, 24,152 is related to some smaller capital outlay items. So no real concerns with the decrease in funding balance there. Transfers equals the 2019-2020 audited revenues over expenditures before transfers. So essentially anything that wasn't needed for operations in fiscal year 2019-2020 is going to be sent over to the reserve fund for those capital projects. Next slide. In the sewer fund, personal services and material services for fiscal year 2021-2022 equals 1 million. So pretty similar to water. An increase of 114,219 or 13% over the prior year. But 42,311 of that's related to the salary study adjustments, again to frontline workers, and then $64,065 is related. So a majority of it is related to the some additional maintenance that's needed in this upcoming fiscal year. Again, no change in debt service for fiscal year 2021-22. There's a $345,666 decrease in ending fund balance, and $150,000 is due to contingency, and $29,152 is related to capital outlay. Note there's $829,152 in capital outlay in the sewer fund, but the $800,000 of that is related to grant funding, so that really doesn't affect, it's money in, money out. Doesn't really affect the fund balance of the sewer fund. Transfers equals, again, the 1920 audited revenues over expenditures before transfers. And I guess we can move to the next slide. The airport fund, personal services and materials and services for fiscal year 21-2022 equals $420,054. It's a decrease of 2% over the prior year. $25,000 decrease in aviation fuel is due to a conservative forecast demand. So we kind of brought it down a little bit. We noted that the demand wasn't as high this fiscal year. Runway design, $350,000 is going to be funded by FAA and ODA grants. There is a small portion of that that's required city funds, but the follow-up to the design will be the overlay of the runway, and it's coming in at a little over $3 million in future fiscal years. So you can see that in the CIP, the capital improvements plan. Installation of wastewater facility at Hobby Field, funded by grant funds in the sewer fund, will improve economic opportunities at the airport. And then the $100,000 interfund loan from the general fund to purchase hangars as they become available. That seems to have worked well in the recent past, bringing in some more revenue streams for the airport, more rent monies, and overall a $53,787 decrease in ending fund balance. But again, $61,000 of that is contingency, so that will likely roll over and back into fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. $10,000 capital outlay for security cameras at the airport. I should note that. That's something that has been needed for a while out there. And then $11,110, the interfund loans payments to the general fund for those loans to purchase hangars in the past. Next slide. Well, that's the highs and lows. Does anyone have any questions? Mayor Stram, or excuse me, Dave Stram.
I do, but I don't need to go first. If anyone else has questions, I'd be glad to wait my turn.
I think you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. As always, you do a great presentation in an amazingly short amount of time. So, this is page 10 in the earlier presentation you gave us. So the sewer fund Well, all this relates to the airport. I'm very excited about what we have going on at the airport with putting a wastewater treatment facility out there. My understanding is 500,000 comes from the American Recovery Plan Act, and the other 300 is the interfund loan. So does that mean the total cost of what we're putting at the airport we're projecting is 800,000?
That is correct.
Okay. Then also, it's been mentioned several times, interfund loan from the general fund to purchase hangars as they come up for sale. And we've done that several years. Have we been able to purchase hangars?
We have been able, Dave, as they come up for sale. Our manager out at the airport, Shelley Humble's been pretty quick to work on getting those to the council for purchase.
Good. So we continue to have more hangars available than we used to.
There's still the same number of hangars, but we actually will own them and actually collect the rents off them. And so and likely when those come up for sale, there's not a lot of activity going on to begin with. So we get a new renter in there who's maybe flying more and buying more airplane fuel at the airport. So it's definitely a positive for the airport.
Good. Then my last question is, am I correct in my understanding that we're making an operational transfer from the general fund to the airport for $150,000?
That's correct. That's correct. And the hope is to get the airport going in a positive direction with some investment in infrastructure.
So I remember several years ago we were in the habit of making regular transfers in the neighborhood of 50,000. So this seems like a lot of money for operations at the airport. So I guess I'm just asking a question. What's the? I'm curious why the airport's running $150,000 in the red is what it appears, and maybe that's not accurate.
Part of that the challenge is the contingency reserves that are needed by the airport, and the ending fund balance reserves. Yeah, we are depleting the fund balances year over year with things like operational expenses at the airport. I would say, based on the estimates I'm seeing this year, that the COVID-19 pandemic impacts were greater than we anticipated. It was definitely a challenging year for the airport and all city funds and departments, but especially the airport. I mean, the airport doesn't have a user fee except for the rents, and a lot of those rents are controlled by 30-year-old contracts. So it has not been a very encouraging year. We are encouraged by the prospects of these new infrastructure projects, though, and it would be very beneficial if there was some private investment at the airport as well.
Well, that will be a tremendous gain for the airport, having water and wastewater out there. I mean, that's been talked about for years and years and years, so that's a huge gain for the airport. So then I had a question about SDC funds. It says 300,000 is going to be going for improvements on 2nd Street Park. Last year, I remember hearing that we weren't really planning to put much into the 2nd Street Park until the road was done on South 2nd Street, so it could all be done at the same time. So have we changed our thinking on that?
Yeah, David, we thought we could get 2nd Street, the road project, going much sooner, and it's been challenging to find the finances for that project. It's going to be a hefty lift, and this is the direction now is to get the park amenities in there sooner than waiting till everything aligns up.
Go ahead.
Initially, if we could get the Second Street project going sooner, you know, there are some cost savings if you can put those projects together. But
Will the $300,000, are we thinking that that will pretty much complete the Second Street Park? So that will be a 2021-22 project and then we'll be done with it?
no, you'll see in the capital improvements plan that there's some more monies needed to complete that park. That'll just be the beginning of amenities at Second Street.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Are there any other questions for Finance Director Piper at this time? Looks like Mayor Knutson.
Thank you. I had a question about the salary study. So that cost $42,311, and it says to frontline workers, but we don't have frontline workers at Crestwell City Hall, at least not to my knowledge.
I'm sorry, Mayor Knudsen, I probably poorly worded that. The 42,000 is a salary adjustments to each of the different levels of maintenance workers. So you've got maintenance 1, 2, and 3. We consider them the frontline workers in our public works departments because they're the boots on the ground essentially.
Right.
And so that's
okay,
salary.
yeah, that was confusing.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Because part of the American Rescue Plan is you can use some of that grant money to help salary adjustments for frontline workers, but they mean like medical personnel,
right?
Nurses, firemen, policemen, you know, all those people, which we don't have. So right. that confused me. All right, that's all I had.
Thank you.
Councillor Castilla.
Yes, Jim, maybe just so I get understand this correctly. So like on page 4, general fund, you have 380,000 contingency reserves. And then on the water fund, sewer fund, and airport fund, there's also some funds there due to contingency. Is there a difference there?
No, they're all the contingency reserves are required. They're kind of in case of an emergency, because you can't spend directly out of ending fund balance. It's a budgeting law thing. So all the funds will have an operating contingency reserve.
Okay, so just to clarify that, though it says it's a decrease, it actually has to stay there. Is that right?
Right. No, I'm referring to the, and I was trying to figure out a way to present that. So there's an increase or a decrease in the fund balance, and I wanted to show that part of that is due to, part of it is you take away the contingency reserve from fund balance. Likely that'll roll over and back in the ending fund balance, but maybe that was a confusing way to present that.
No, that's fine. No, that's I just wanted to make sure. That's the way I understood it. I just wanted to make sure that was right. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Wonderful. The floor is open for any additional questions. All right, seeing no additional questions, thank you very much for that insightful presentation of the overview of the proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 budget.
Thank you, Chairman Clark, and I wish you all well, and then hopefully you can stay awake through the 130 plus page document that we refer to as the budget. And again, I will take any questions over the next couple of weeks. Please reach out and email me. You know, there's probably details I can pull up and explain some of the line items for you, both past and proposed. So feel free to email me, and then I'll distribute the answers out to everyone. So likely, you know, more than one person has the same question. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. So moving on to our next agenda item, says receive public comments on the proposed budget and possible uses of state revenue sharing. Are there any public comments?
I have not received any.
Okay. Well, with that being said, it looks like it's time for adjournment. And so this is asking for a question of clarification. Do we need to receive a motion for adjournment, or are we able to just move right into adjournment?
Go ahead, Roberta.
I was going to say, Chairperson Clark, you are the one who adjourns the meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, excellent. I'm ready to go then. So thank you all very much. I am adjourning this meeting for the Budget Committee for May 3rd, 2021. For all of you Star Wars fans out there, may the 4th be with you.
Oh, yes.